Thank you, everyone. So today, my role in this session is really to kind of connect how our research in kind of a broader perspective works with ATT and supporting kind of advancing modernization of pharmaceutical development and manufacturing. So the learning objective is going to kind of explain why research is important. I think we heard, and the second objective is describe how research has already impacted CDER's assessment of these emerging technologies. I'll do that through some small case studies, but we just heard Sarah's great case study already, and very in-depth, of one of the technologies that we've seen through the emerging technology team. So I'll touch on 3 different ones, but much more briefly. And the last point is help you kind of locate opportunities to collaborate with CDER, especially for those in the academia or other research organizations, about how we can kind of collaborate together to move technologies forward that impact pharmaceutical quality. So the first point I want to really kind of address is kind of why is research needed for CDER for pharmaceutical quality. So FDA is, of course, a science-based regulatory agency, and science has really formed the foundation of how we regulate, assess, and surveillance of product quality in the pharmaceuticals. We've seen through the emerging technology team and all the examples there, the drugs are getting more complex over time. Manufacturing processes that make them are getting more complex. The ways we test them are getting more complex in the case of multi-attribute method. So science and research is needed to kind of keep pace with that, to make sure the regulations and guidance that we put forward are based on the latest kind of state-of-the-art science around pharmaceutical quality. The great thing about the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality within the FDA is it really combines all these functions together. The research, the policy, the assessment piece, all surveillance, all reside in the same office. So OPQ has a broad portfolio of research within the agency, and this research really covers all the kinds of products we regulate, from new drugs, generic drugs, biosimilars, over-the-counter sunscreen products, to new biotech products. Through the ATT, you kind of the portfolios that have the most interaction with the emerging technology team so far have been kind of the manufacturing science space. You can think of continuous manufacturing, as well as the advanced characterization space. You can kind of think of the MAM talk presentation we just heard. But we do have robust portfolios in all these other areas. There's actually a paper that came out, Fisher et al., from the OPQ and CDER a couple years ago. If you want to learn more about the different other areas, I encourage you to look that paper up. So then also within OPQ, really to kind of, we've created centers of excellence for these research in these specific areas to bring subject matter experts in the different function groups within OPQ together as really as a platform for scientific communication and collaboration. So researchers can get together to kind of help better have a multidisciplinary approach for projects. But we can also hear from the review function divisions about challenges they're facing, and they can also learn about the ongoing research in the labs. This kind of helps us to more effectively respond to emerging scientific trends. So within OPQ, there are 5 centers of excellence listed here. Again, manufacturing, science, and innovation is one of them. Advanced characterization is another center of excellence. And there are another couple other that are mostly focused on our biotech products within the Office of Biotechnology Products. Again, this is really how does this play? This slide is really trying to help us to play this back to what we heard earlier this morning from Larry about the emerging technology team. Really, the emerging technology team is a team where you can approach the agency very early on your development of technology. Usually, the industry, the sponsors coming to this meeting has questions. They have questions, they're looking for feedback. The things with novel technologies is that we really don't have much experience with them. So, our research program, obviously we get information from the sponsor. We ask a lot of questions, how we learn, the kind of shared learning experience. That can also, especially when we hear similar questions from multiple sponsors, that can generate ideas for our research program to, hey, we need to generate some data or provide feedback because we keep getting these questions on these topics. And that's kind of how our research function and our centers of excellence really kind of play in and really impact the kind of feedback we give to the emerging technology team. For manufacturing science and innovation, all new technology and manufacturing have a challenge kind of moving from discovery to implementation, commercialization stages. So this, the chart you see on the slide is actually something that's put together actually Office of Science Technology Policy in the White House function. And really there's kind of a gap as technologies get discovered and moving from that into actually commercialization, called the Valley of Death, a little grim, but that's what we call it. Manufacturing technologies within regulated industries face an additional challenge of some regulatory questions. Well, how's this going to fit into the regulatory paradigm, especially if it's not clear? So for our research program, we really target this kind of late stage, mission-driven research to kind of really answer these questions as it's kind of moving into this commercialization sphere, to really kind of remove some of this regulatory uncertainty about these new technologies. We've developed a number of platforms within the office to look at different areas. So, Sarah, you talked already about the multi-attribute method. I'm going to talk a little about modeling and simulation, as well as some ice nucleation. So this is an advanced lyophilization process, as well as some characterization of our container closure systems. But we have a number of in-house capabilities for advanced manufacturing technologies. So that's 3D printing, you can use biomanufacturing, you can use small drug manufacturing, as well as some high throughput analytical approaches to analyze the products generated from those platforms. So the next segment of my talk, I'm just going to quickly go through 3 case studies where I hope to try to illustrate how the research has impacted some of the feedback we've given for the emerging technology. So the first one would be assessment and process control limits for continuous manufacturing. So you've already seen the process schematic in the earlier talks. This is an example of a continuous direct compression process where you're feeding materials directly into a blending step. That's getting blended. Then you might do a secondary blending step for lubrication, and then you compress your final tablets. The control of the material feeding into the process actually has a lot of impact on your final product quality, whether it's assay uniformity, even dissolution. So the limits around and how you control those feeders is very important. We also heard already about the importance of understanding the process dynamics. So if you do have variation in that, how does that variation move through the process? And one of the ways to understand that is understanding the process, the residence time distribution, which characterizes the process dynamics of the system. And you can apply models that describe that to then translate variation in the feeding to variation in your product quality. And that can help you justify limits. So in OPQ, we've developed models that have helped us do that. And you can translate those variations into this nice colorful plots here, called a funnel plot, where you take in variations that might vary in magnitude and duration and convert them into impact on product quality. We've directly used these models to support the assessment of proposed feeding limits. Usually these are not 90 to 110, they're usually wider, and to help us understand whether that's appropriate. We've also used this knowledge gain for this to generate considerations for actually validating these kind of models. And that's what it's in the table there, is kind of actually a layout of a validation to help us assess models that get submitted by the sponsor. In case 2, this is actually an advanced lyophilization process. So lyophilization is very common for our parental products. About 30 to 1/3 to 40% actually use this. It has 3 stages. So right, you freeze, your primary dry, secondary dry. So freezing, while it's the shortest, can actually impact the subsequent steps and final product quality. Freezing in ice is stochastic by nature, so this can create variability from batch to batch. But now there's been advances in kind of using pressurization, holding the system at high pressure while you cool the system down to prevent nucleation, and then quickly depressurizing, which then you get kind of nucleation at the design time. So the top chart kind of shows you an evolution of several batches that we've manufactured at OPQ in our lyophilization platform. You can show the consistency of this approach, as opposed if you looked at traditional approaches, those product temperature lines would be a little bit more variable. Right now they kind of lie right on top of each other. You also see that basically the drying time is much shorter in the controlled ice nucleation. That's actually because you get bigger pore sizes. This helps with the drying. You get actually more consistent pore sizes, so you get more consistent drying. And even small changes in the temperature at which you're holding and pressurizing can actually impact the actual time, pore size, and that can actually have considerations for product quality. So out of the research, we've kind of developed a map that links these process parameters to product quality attributes. That's helped actually give some early feedback to the sponsors kind of looking to move this to commercial manufacturing. The last case study I want to quickly talk about is the first one is about small molecules. Second one is about mostly large molecules. This third one is kind of cross-cutting, I would say. That's really the assessment of pharmaceutical quality for container closure systems. So as we know, glass is a common container closure system for parental products. Generally inert. It's got good, strong structural stability. That's kind of why it's been chosen very often. But we still see product recalls. With parental products, a lot of this due to particulates. These particulates can form either through chemical mechanisms, through the reaction with the glass, or through physical mechanisms. You're getting abrasion, you're generating some physical interactions that are generating breakages in the vials as well as particles. So in our research program, what we did was to get a better sense of the state of the quality of our container closure systems, is we wanted to develop a systematic test platform. Really kind of take a risk assessment approach where we look at both physical factors, so the load, glass-to-glass stresses, glass-to-metal stresses, as well as chemical factors. That can be from pH, temperature, exposure time, and really generate a platform, as well as apply orthogonal analytical techniques so we can really characterize the state of the system. And this is research that was just recently published in the paper list there, so you can find a lot more details there. The figures kind of show some results from a freeze-thaw stress test that obviously led to some breakage with mantanol. As it kind of freezes, expands, and it kind of provides some physical stress. The other figure shows particulate formation, and you can see that different types of vials have different sensitivities under different extreme conditions for generating particulate matter. So this research is really about giving us a systematic platform, which then we can use to kind of test different container closure systems and their impact on pharmaceutical quality. The last couple slides in my presentation, and that will lead right up to the next talk, is really talking about external collaboration opportunities. So we have a very robust research program within OPQ, but we realize that we can't do this all by ourselves. So we look and actively search out external collaborators that we can work with to execute mission-relevant research projects. So collaboration allows us to leverage external capabilities, especially if something's new, novel. We might not have internal expertise in that particular subject matter area. It also allows us to access platforms. It can take us a while to contract and buy and build up a manufacturing platform. Collaborations allow us to kind of get access to those kind of platforms much faster. But again, it's about doing mission-relevant research. So there are two ways we've funded research projects. So one is through cooperative grants. These are grants that we actually publish on grants.gov for requests for applications. We have two active that are due in the springtime. So first one is really around continuous manufacturing. The second one is much broader in scope. And the other mechanism we have, which actually spans across the FDA, is the FDA's broad agency announcement on regulatory science. Topic area 3 in there is about supporting new approaches to improve product manufacturing and quality. And under that subheading, you'll see a lot of different areas of focus for OPQ and other centers. And that kind of gets refreshed every year. So it gives you kind of a sense of what our current needs are as far as research. Again, these are kind of a list of some of the people we've worked with and funded through projects. Again, these projects allow us to tap into external expertise and external platforms. We actually, one of the people we've worked with, Sal, is actually going to come talk next about end-to-end continuous manufacturing platform. So it'll be a nice segue to kind of hear about some of the external research we funded through OPQ and the FDA. With that, I would like to conclude, phrase my conclusion as a challenge question. So is it true or false research conducted by OPQ COEs have directly impacted assessment of submissions to the emerging technology program? Yes, true. But yeah, I just also want to point out we also utilize collaborations to leverage external expertise and capabilities as needed. So with that, I would just like to actually make these are the most important people. So Michael's PI in the process modeling. Max is our subject matter expert in lyophilization. Charles led the development of our glass testing platform, and Vivian manages and directs our external research grants collaborations. So they're the people who do the real work. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Connor, for the great